What's up, everybody? I just wanted to, been meaning to do this for a while actually, just do a little video on this DR200 I bought. I bought this specifically to fill like kind of 3 niche roles, if you will. Be a bike that I could ride on single track and tougher off-road trails, because at 160 pounds and 5'7", 5'8" on a good day if I'm lying, the KLR is just a bit much to handle on like some single track. I can do it, but if I ever get in a tight spot and I'm by myself, you know, between a rock and a hard place, you can just imagine, I can only imagine, you know, dropping it and just beating it up. So one, I wanted this bike to be something for myself, like I said, for the rougher stuff, and I do a lot of riding solo. Also, this bike is very non-intimidating for friends and or family members to ride. For example, specifically my dad. He grew up riding pretty much his whole life, but he hadn't rode since he was younger than me as far as owning a bike. He had an XR200 when I was a kid, and he'd ride around the house with me. But actually having a serious bike and going out and doing some riding, he hasn't done that in a really long time. Like I said, since he was younger than me. So this would be real easy for him to hop back on. And granted, he's pretty tall. He weighs nothing. He's 6 foot, maybe 6'1", and 145 pounds, thanks to type 2 diabetes. So this bike's fine for him, even though he's pretty tall, just because he weighs nothing. And then also it's short enough that my wife can ride it. And she's had a few dirt bikes over the years, XR100, the biggest being a KX100, but she was kind of scared of it. And after just watching me ride it a couple times, and so she never really rode it much, I just ended up selling it. So I figured this would be a good bike to fill all 3 of those roles, and then a good bike for me to keep in the garage for, you know, other friends to ride as well. Some of who, most all of who, really grew up riding to some extent. So it's, you know, definitely not too much bike for them. Now, after having owned it for a while, I can say I love this thing. I figured I would. I was really looking to get an XT 250, and then I had contemplated XT 225 when one of them popped up for sale. But I went and rode an XT 250. It was a 12 model, so it wasn't the fuel injection, which I think was 13 model and newer. But I really liked it. I really liked it specifically for the turning radius of the front end. It's somewhere ridiculous, like 57 degrees. It's amazing. It's really like a trials bike front end. But the only thing I hated about that XT 250 was the simple fact that the gas tank was so small. And so if I leave off from my house and I fill the tank up, I want to be able to go to West Point and ride all day and not have to worry about fuel. And then when I eventually do hit reserve, you know, I want to know that that's enough to get me back, because if you've got 2 gallons, your reserve may be a half gallon, whereas, you know, the more you hold, like on the KLR, for example, it holds 6.6 gallons, I believe. However, the reserve is like 1.5 gallons, and then it's technically 2 gallons, because after you run out of gas, after burning 1.5 gallons, you can lay the bike on its left side, because it doesn't have a crossover between the right side and the left side. So you can lay the bike down on its left side, and after doing that, you'll get another 1/2 gallon out of it. So that was one thing I really didn't like when looking at the XT 250, is just the tank capacity. I mean, I know it gets exceptionally good fuel economy, so like that 2 gallons, 2.5 gallons get you a long way. but still, it just I was wanting the most I could get, and there was no real aftermarket support for it as far as getting a larger fuel tank. And then if you got a 13 mile or newer, you're looking at fuel injection. So then if someone does make a tank, you got to go through the trouble of swapping out your fuel pump and all that. So that's kind of why I landed on the DR. Is it's 3.5 gallon tank, and I think it still only boasts like a 0.6 gallon reserve, but I've never come close to hitting the reserve. However, 75 miles to the gallon roughly. If I had an XT, there's a time or two where I probably would have had to hit reserve. So the only downside compared to the XT 250 for me was the drum brake in the rear. I really wish Suzuki could get it together and add, $100, $150 to the initial brand new price tag, and it gave it a disc on the rear. But as you can see from some of this riding I've been doing in this video, just messing around behind my house here in some of these ditches, like descending, I have no trouble modulating a brake, or the rear brake, with it being drum. So I'm complaining about it, but it's not really that big of a problem. It's just when you're looking to buy, it kind of rubs off as a problem. But I have no complaints with it so far. Like I said, I have no trouble modulating it and using it. Aside from that, the only other complaint I have is I can't seem to find anyone that sells a longer shift lever so I can wear my motocross boots while I ride it. And that's still an ongoing search for me. But other than that, I've really been enjoying this bike for what I bought it for. I've gotten it. I haven't had to do anything to it. It's an 09 model. It's got 7,579 miles on it now. It had 7,100 when I bought it a couple months ago. And a couple tanks of gas through it. I put the Pro Taper, I believe these are CR bend bars, and the Tusk handguard, wraparound handguards here. Put them on it just for riding in the woods. And unfortunately, the stock bars have a bar weight that's welded in the end. So if you're going to do wraparound handguards, you're either going to have to drill that out, which I attempted to do, but after about 15 minutes of messing with it, I just got fed up, and so I just went back inside and ordered new bars. So other than that, I haven't done anything to it, but I am running a what I'd say is a true 50/50 tire on the rear, that being a Shinko 244, and then it's got a Trials GP1, which is an IRC tire, which has a very similar tread pattern on the front already. Man, I'm kind of surprised at how little recognition this bike gets, because I would take this bike brand new at full MSRP over, say, any Chinese dual sport, which are flooding the market right now and are slowly gaining popularity, which is great. I think we need more options, but at their current quality level, at least from what I've seen, I would much rather pay full price for that DR200 as I had go for one of the Chinese bikes right now, as far as what, a dual sport, something that I could ride on road and off, and I feel like that would be a great option for people who are looking for something cheaper. And I mean, yeah, you're not going to be doing any serious highway miles with it. You wouldn't like it. The bike would probably handle it fine, in all honesty. About 60, 65. I can't say I've ever gotten it over 65, but somewhere between 60 and 65 65 is what I cruise on the highway at when I'm headed to West Point, but that's just for maybe 4 miles, and then I turn off at my county road, so I can't really attest to its highway ability, not for a long-term distance, which that's not what it's built for. But for example, the XT250 in 2018, from what I read, sold more units than everything except a KLR. KLR, and I feel like DR650 was close behind. And I'm speaking specifically North American, because you go ahead and leave North America and you start looking at Deal Sports, and XT250 dominates, which over there, anywhere over there would be. The XT250 is referred to as the Cero. And but man, I feel like this little DR is just doesn't get the recognition it deserves. I've been amazingly surprised with it. Yeah, it's nothing special performance-wise. Yeah, it's got crappy suspension. Yeah, it's pretty soft. If you're heavy, you're not. This ain't the bike for you if you're over 200 pounds, unless you plan on just using it as a farm bike. But if you need a farm bike, I would say TW200, just for those big ATV tires it runs. I mean, air-cooled, cheapest that each manufacturer's got, for the most part. You're looking at XT250, TW200, which is cheaper than the XT from Yamaha, DR200, and then the WR250 from Yamaha, the KLX250, and the CRF250L are all out. If you're looking used, then the CRF230L would compare really close. I believe the closest to the DR, considering it also has a drum rear. The WR250, the KLX250, the CRF250L doesn't have adjustable suspension, the other two do, but the CRF250L, the only reason I don't compare it is just, you know, the extra price. You kind of jump into what I would consider two tiers of the small displacement class, being the lower tier, which is just the cheapest of the cheap, air-cooled, in the DR's case still carbureted, and in the TW's case still carbureted, and then the higher tier small displacement being the CRF250L, KLX250, and then the WR250. But yeah, I've had this bike for a few months now, and I haven't really done a review on it. Just I do have 3 videos where I ride it to West Point. Those are some of my first videos, so they're not really that great, but if you want to see the DR200 in action, I would say go watch part 3 of that little series I done. And yeah, until next time, keep the rubber side down and keep riding. And I almost forgot one last thing before I go. You've always got to include in a good Deal Sport video.